Welcome to the Sci-Fi Evolution channel. So, there I was, drifting around in the most prestigious space station in the galaxy, observing what could only be described as the universe's grandest gathering of alien egos. The chambers of the cosmic conclave resembled a cosmic costume party that had been thrown, with no theme in sight. There were your typical tentacled beings, your crystalline rock people, your floating gas clouds, all with their own attitude issues, and, of course, the inevitable species that looked like they had been designed by a committee of rebellious teenagers. But the true star of the show was Zalara, the Conclave's premier telepathic interrogator. Picture this: 8 feet tall, her skin like polished obsidian, for arms that move with a grace that makes you think she practices synchronized swimming in her spare time, and eyes that shine with the confidence of someone who has never encountered a mind they couldn't crack. Zalara was the Nova of the Conclave. For the past 5 centuries, Cashin has been the go-to person for the Conclave when they needed to extract information from unwilling subjects. Political dissidents, space pirates, tax evaders, and the individual who habitually parked their ship in a disabled zone without a permit. All of them crumbled like paper in a hurricane the moment she made contact with their minds. Her success rate was flawless, not 99%, not 99.9%, but 100%, because apparently, in a galaxy filled with advanced civilizations, no one had figured out how to properly protect their thoughts from a determined telepathic invader. Now, Terra has finally managed to emerge from its technological infancy long enough to send its first official diplomatic mission to the stars. The Conclave, being the welcoming bunch they are, decided that the best way to greet humanity was to immediately test their mental defenses. Just to see what they were working with. Nothing says friendly first impression like a spontaneous mental scan. The human representative, Ambassador Ethan Reed, was a man who looked like he had been specifically designed to be as unremarkable as possible. He was of average height and build, with a face that you would forget within seconds of meeting him in a grocery store. He wore a navy blue suit that probably came from the diplomatic equivalent of a discount store, and he had an expression of barely contained excitement, like a child who had just found out they were going to Astroworld but was trying to act professional about it. Poor Ethan had no idea what he was getting into. The conclave chamber was buzzing with anticipation, the kind of atmosphere you see before someone is publicly humiliated on live television. Ethan approached his workstation with the casual confidence of someone about to perform a routine maintenance check. After all, what could be challenging about reading someone's mind? Zalara, a species that had only recently learned how to leave their planet without exploding, placed one of her forehands on Ethan's shoulder with the solemnity of someone checking their mail. She closed her glowing eyes, activated her telepathic abilities, and prepared to delve into his mind. She expected to find simple thoughts about food, reproduction, perhaps some primitive territorial instincts, the mental equivalent of a children's picture book. However, what she encountered was like trying to drink from a fire hose filled with caffeinated chaos. The first thing that struck her was Ethan's immediate concern about whether he had remembered to turn off the air conditioning in his hotel room before leaving for the meeting. This was swiftly followed by a detailed mental review of his breakfast choices, lingering anxiety about whether his tie was straight, and a sudden realization that he had absolutely no idea how to get to the meeting on time. Ethan was supposed to remember half of the alien names, but there was more to it. His mind was simultaneously engaged in a complex analysis of the political implications of this initial contact, while also pondering whether the blue alien in the corner was judging his posture. He was calculating the potential economic advantages of interstellar trade agreements, while questioning whether his deodorant was still effective after the morning stress. Somehow, amidst all this, Ethan managed to engage in a pleasant conversation with the conclave members about Terra's weather patterns. His lips were saying things like, "Yes, our seasonal variations create diverse agricultural opportunities," while his mind was screaming, "Did I remember to pay for parking? What if I get a ticket?" What if they tow my car? Do I even need a car anymore if I'm going to be doing space diplomacy? To discern the central thread of Ethan's thoughts was akin to attempting to follow a single conversation in a bustling party, where everyone was engaged in animated discussions on a variety of unrelated subjects. His mind was simultaneously processing the architectural beauty of the space station, reviewing every embarrassing remark he had ever made to a woman, running through a mental grocery list, and composing what he believed to be a clever response to the next question. The most perplexing aspect was that these thoughts did not seem to interfere with one another. They all ran concurrently, like the most chaotic operating system in the universe. Ethan was experiencing a profound existential dread about humanity's place in the cosmic order. Yet he also felt a sense of accomplishment for having managed to dress without staining his shirt that morning. Zalara's orderly, methodical mind began to feel like it was attempting to solve a jigsaw puzzle. The conundrum, where all the components were of the same hue and potentially from various puzzles, had never posed a problem that she had not faced before. Ethan was simultaneously contemplating profound philosophical ideas, casually referencing pop culture, worrying about his finances, and engaging in a detailed internal debate about whether the lighting in the meeting room flattered his complexion. He continued to speak, completely unaware of the mental turmoil he was causing Zalara. That's when things took a turn for the unexpected. Zalara made the mistake of trying to delve deeper, thinking she could find an organizational structure in Ethan's mind, a kind of filing system, perhaps a neatly ordered hierarchy of thoughts arranged by importance or relevance. Instead, she found herself face-to-face with Ethan's memory of his attempt to assemble a bookshelf from Valhalla Home Goods last weekend. Now, for those who have not experienced the unique form of psychological torture that is Swedish furniture assembly, imagine trying to solve a three-dimensional puzzle designed by someone with a clear animosity towards the concept. Ethan's mind was not simply replaying the events. Oh no, it was a full-fledged sensory experience, complete with mounting frustration, the growing conviction that he was missing crucial elements, and the gradual descent into madness that comes with realizing that the little cartoon man in the instructions manual was definitely mocking him. While Zalara was trapped in this furniture assembly nightmare, Ethan's current consciousness was simultaneously experiencing a separate anxiety spiral about whether he should call his mother more frequently. Not just whether he should call her, but the intricate emotional calculus of family obligation, the guilt about not calling her last sun cycle, the anticipatory stress about what she might want to discuss, and the peculiar shame about being a grown man who still felt the need for his mother's approval for significant life decisions. These two thought streams were running concurrently. While attempting to insert a tab into a slot, Zalara experienced a sense of frustration and guilt over missing Matriarch's Day 2 cycles prior. Her thoughts were divided between her career path and the significance of the occasion. The most distressing aspect was that these thoughts were equally pressing and significant to her mental state. Ethan's mind was a veritable hub for psychological turmoil, and he was experiencing a full-blown existential crisis. He was living in the present while simultaneously immersing himself in intricate daydreams about his life as a zero-G botanist. He wondered if the stellar flora were judging him for his life decisions, and he was consumed with anxiety about the potential existence of aliens. Zalara, analyzing Ethan based on his species and environmental history, realized that she was no longer merely reading his thoughts. She was experiencing them. The telepathic link had become a two-way communication, and now she was feeling the full weight of human emotional complexity. She was experiencing guilt for things she had never done, anxiety about problems that did not exist, and a strange, inexplicable pride for parallel parking in downtown Coruscant. The other conclave members began to notice something was amiss. Zalara's usual serene demeanor had been replaced by a look of growing terror, akin to someone who had just realized they were trapped in an elevator with a broken speaker system playing elevator music on an endless loop. She attempted to sever the connection, But Ethan's mind was like mental quicksand. The more she struggled to escape, the deeper she sank into the beautiful, chaotic mess that was human consciousness. Zalara unveiled the truly frightening aspect of the human mind. It is not fully aware of its own thoughts, yet it still functions as a competent society. Ethan was deeply perplexed about whether synth NutriPaste could be considered a beverage. This was not a fleeting thought, but a full-fledged philosophical inquiry that encompassed the definition of beverages, the role of temperature in food classification, the cultural implications of breakfast categorization, and a meticulous examination of the spoon-to-liquid ratio as a determining factor in culinary taxonomy. While this earth-shattering debate raged in one corner of his mind, another part simultaneously developed what he believed to be a brilliant strategy for humanity's defense against potential alien invasion. He did not believe the current aliens to be hostile, but he knew better than to take chances. His plan involved a sophisticated blend of guerrilla warfare, the tactics of war, psychological operations, and the element of surprise through sheer unpredictability. These were the three pillars of his strategy. The truly disturbing aspect was that he seemed to value all three equally. The synth NutriPaste question and humanity's survival were given the same level of mental attention and emotional investment. Zalara's alien consciousness, ordered and structured, struggled to comprehend this contradiction. In her species, thoughts were logical, purposeful, and linear. You prioritized important matters and did not waste cognitive resources on philosophical musings while planning for interstellar warfare. But Ethan's mind operated on a different paradigm. He could hold conflicting ideas without apparent distress. He could be deeply concerned about humanity's future, while also being unreasonably confident in their abilities. He felt profoundly. The speaker was grateful for the chance to represent his species, yet he also wondered if he was truly qualified for the task. He could experience a mixture of crippling self-doubt and unreasonable optimism. Yet somehow, amidst this mental turmoil, he was still able to provide coherent responses to the conclave's inquiries. His lips were uttering phrases like, "Terra's technological progress has been swift but sustainable," while his mind was analyzing whether the strange movements of the tentacled aliens reminded him of the chaotic noodles in his high school cafeteria. He realized he was witnessing humanity's greatest evolutionary advantage. It wasn't tool use, adaptability, or pack-hunting instincts. It was their ability to function normally while experiencing complete mental chaos. They had transformed mental disorder into a superpower. Other species developed logic, reason, and clear thinking to survive. Humans, it seemed, had chosen to harness mental disorder as a superpower instead. Rationality was not required, and disorder was a characteristic, not a flaw. They could make crucial choices while their thoughts were occupied with 17 distinct issues, 12 random recollections, and at least 3 entirely hypothetical scenarios. The telepathic feedback was intensifying, and Zalara could sense her own mind beginning to splinter as it attempted to process all this information. Ethan's thoughts began to wander as she pondered whether she had properly charged her meditation crystals. She also felt a sense of unease about a test she had never taken for a class she had never attended. Her consciousness seemed to spread like a contagion through the telepathic link, transforming her ordered thoughts into a chaotic symphony of random worries, forgotten obligations, and philosophical queries about the nature of cosmic tube meat. At that moment, Ethan's mind took a sharp turn into uncharted territory. One moment she was deep in thought about the political implications of interstellar trade agreements, and the next she was grappling with a full-blown existential crisis about whether her response to a simple greeting had been appropriately enthusiastic. Not just whether it had been polite, but whether the specific tone, timing, and facial expression had conveyed the right emotion. Ethan was a professional and affable, without appearing insincere or overly eager. He replayed the entire conversation in slow motion, scrutinizing every word, every subtle expression, and every possible interpretation of his words. He wondered whether saying "thank you" and "how about you" was too generic, or if "thank you for asking" and "I'm doing well" would be too much, or if he should have provided more specific details about his well-being. He also pondered whether his inquiry about their day was genuine interest or simply a social obligation. This was not a fleeting moment of social anxiety. It was a comprehensive post-interaction analysis that would have impressed a team of behavioral psychologists. Ethan considered alternative scenarios, calculating the probability matrices of how his response might have been perceived. He felt both confident that he had handled the situation perfectly and utterly certain that he had made a terrible first impression. Meanwhile, in the depths of his mind, Ethan was engaged in a profound philosophical inquiry about whether the extraterrestrial visitors had any decent snacks. His curiosity was not merely academic. He was genuinely concerned about interstellar hospitality standards. He pondered whether offering to share human snacks would be culturally appropriate, and whether alien digestive systems could handle Terra food. He also considered whether bringing up snacks during a diplomatic meeting would be seen as professional or endearing. Ethan's mind, which had been functioning like a finely tuned instrument for centuries, was now grappling with the full weight of human overthinking. He was anxious about social interactions with species he had never encountered, and he wondered about snack protocols for these unknown creatures. In some ways, he experienced both crippling self-doubt and irrational confidence in his telepathic abilities. The feedback loop was reaching a critical point, and Ethan's thoughts about synth NutriPaste were overwhelming. Zilara, attempting to concentrate on a single aspect of Ethan's thoughts, lost her composure. To regain her mental equilibrium, she posed a seemingly straightforward question. "Are cosmic tube meat sandwiches a misstep?" Ethan's mind immediately embarked on a discourse that could only be described as a dissertation on the philosophy of sandwiches. He delved into the argument of structural integrity, the historical precedent of portable foods, the cultural significance of meal delivery systems based on bread, and the legal ramifications of sandwich classification for tax purposes. Zilara exclaimed, not in the dignified manner of an alien, but in a moment of intense mental strain. Zilara inadvertently transmitted Ethan's entire mental state to every member of the cosmic conclave. Suddenly, every being in the room was experiencing Ethan's thoughts, including his worries about air conditioning, his philosophical musings about breakfast food, and his surprisingly detailed invasion defense plans. The conclave chambers descended into pandemonium as dozens of alien minds struggled to cope with the overwhelming influx of human consciousness. Zilara collapsed from the strain, her mind shutting down to protect itself. Ethan finally realized something was amiss when the telepathic interrogator fell to the ground with a thud, like someone dropping a bag of angry cats. The entire conclave chamber fell silent. It was truly astonishing, given that the room had been filled with lively chatter just moments ago. "Oh my goodness, is she all right?" Ethan inquired, his tone reflecting the uncertainty that often accompanies situations where one is unsure whether to be concerned or if such behavior is typical. His thoughts raced, pondering whether he had inadvertently caused this, whether he should offer assistance, or whether touching an unconscious alien would be considered an act of aggression. He wondered if aliens even had medical professionals. The crystalline conclave member, who had been discussing Terra's mineral resources with Ethan, now stared at him with an expression of sheer terror. Its normally prismatic exterior had become completely opaque, as if a light had been extinguished. It managed to utter, in a voice reminiscent of grinding quartz, "What was that about cosmic tube meat, Ethan?" Ethan blinked, utterly perplexed. "I was not referring to cosmic tube meat. Were we supposed to be discussing cosmic tube meat? Is this some sort of diplomatic issue that I missed during the briefing?" His mind was racing. wondering if there was some crucial cultural exchange involving Terra's processed meat products that he had somehow overlooked. The alien with tentacles in the corner was making a noise like a malfunctioning air conditioner, which Ethan was certain was not a good sign. Several other conclave members were retreating from him, as if he were radioactive, their various appendages twitching in what appeared to be barely controlled panic. The gas cloud entity, usually emitting a steady purple glow, was now flickering like a dying neon sign. The terrible questions about breakfast foods. How do you live with those thoughts? I mean, synth NutriPaste is quite peculiar when you think about it. Ethan responded. I fully comprehend the profound dread in the alien's voice. It sounds as if we are simply pouring milk over synth NutriPaste and calling it a meal. But when you put it that way, it does seem rather basic. This statement caused several conclave members to emit distressed sounds, potentially violating noise regulations on most civilized planets. The head of the conclave, a dignified reptilian figure who had maintained impeccable composure throughout centuries of interstellar diplomacy, now pressed all 6 of his hands against his temples, as if attempting to prevent his brain from escaping through his ears. Ambassador Reed declared, "We have decided to immediately approve humanity's application for full membership in the Cosmic Conclave, with all the accompanying benefits and protections. Please take this documentation and return to your ship at your earliest convenience." Ethan beamed with joy, resembling a child on Christmas morning. I thought it would take months of negotiations, but it turned out to be much easier than I anticipated. Should I call Terra? Is there anything I need to sign? Oh my goodness. Wait until I tell my mother about this. The mere mention of Ethan's mother caused a visible shudder throughout the room. The conclave head swiftly declared, "No signatures required. Everything has been pre-approved and expedited. Please proceed to the designated floor." Zalara began to stir, emitting soft whimpers, indicating a possible psychological episode. A medical team hovered around her, but they seemed hesitant to approach, as if she might be contagious. "Should I wait to see if she's okay?" Ethan inquired, for he was a decent person who felt remorse when others were hurt, even if he had no idea he was the cause. The crowd responded in unison, "No." 15 distinct species united in a symphony of dread, which would have been awe-inspiring had it not been for the deeply unsettling experience Ethan endured when he was escorted from the chamber by what appeared to be security personnel. He was already mentally drafting his report back to Terra, proud of his accomplishment in successfully completing humanity's first diplomatic mission, albeit with some uncertainty about the encounter with the mind-reading woman. He contemplated whether to include the fainting incident in his official report, fearing it might reflect unfavorably on humanity. 3 cycles later, Zalara was still undergoing therapy, working through what her therapist delicately described as a profound exposure to human cognitive patterns. She developed a nervous tic, where she would randomly ponder about the classification of breakfast foods, and she had to be sedated whenever anyone mentioned assembling furniture. The Cosmic Conclave has issued a galaxy-wide communication categorizing the incident. The human mind as a collective poses a cognitive risk. All telepathic beings are advised to avoid mental contact with humans unless absolutely necessary. It is recommended to do so while wearing appropriate psychic protection. Ethan returned to Terra as a hero, unaware that he had inadvertently weaponized human consciousness and traumatized the galaxy's most skilled telepathic interrogator. His main concern during the journey home was whether his expense report would be approved and whether the airline food would be considered a proper meal or just a fancy snack. The intricate complexity of human consciousness has officially become humanity's greatest diplomatic advantage, even if no one on Terra is aware of it yet.